Assalamu alaikum, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to Kanem English, and my name is Babakura Maru. In this lesson, I'm going to share with you some tips about verbs. I know many of you may ask the kinds or types of verbs which seems strange to people because no one can tell you these are the fixed or specific types of verbs. It depends on the person's understanding on how the verbs are being used. Therefore, in this lesson, we are going to look at the 12 different kinds of verbs with the example sentences. First, we are going to look at the action verbs, the stative verbs, transitive verbs, intransitive verbs, linking verbs, helping verbs, that means the auxiliary verbs, modal verbs, regular verbs, irregular verbs, phrasal verbs, finite verbs, as well as the non-finite verbs. So we are going to look at them all together in their example sentences. First, let's talk about the action verbs. The action verbs are the physical action that you can see a person or someone is performing. For instance, the word run. Ali is running, so you can see the action physically. Musa is eating, you can see Musa performing the action of eating. Aisha is driving, you can see the action performed by Aisha. So all these are physical actions. Let's look at the next example, the stative verb. The stative verb is the verb that we used without putting an ing form to the base form of the verb. For instance, love, want, like, on, have, need. So all these are what? Stative verb. You cannot say I am loving her, but you can say I love her. You cannot say she is loving him, but you can say she loves him. So no ing form when using the stative verbs. Let's look for the what? The next example, transitive verb. A transitive verb is a verb that takes an object. So let's have an example. Eat. Say Musa ate the food. So Musa ate what? The food. So we have Musa, the subject, eat is the verb, and the food is the object. Needs an object. That's why we said it is transitive verb. Then the word hit. I hit the man. Who did you hit? I hit the man. So I subject, hit verb, and the man is the object. Then the word maybe slap. I slapped the boy. Who did you slap? The boy. So that means I subject, slapped verb, and then what? The boy is the object because the word require an object. If I say I slapped, someone may ask, who did you slap? You can say I slapped a boy. So that means you need an object here. Then intransitive verb. Intransitive verb is just the opposite of transitive verb. Therefore, an intransitive verb is a verb that doesn't carry an object. I am crying. I am crying. No one will ask you, what are you crying? So, I am crying for what happened. So, if you say for what happened, we have the word for there. Therefore, this object doesn't belong to the verb cry. It belongs to the preposition for. For instance, the word sleep. I sleep. No one will ask you, sleep what? Because this verb doesn't require an object. Therefore, I slept on the mattress. If you say I sleep on the mattress, we have the word on still. So this on is what makes it somehow. Therefore, the mattress is the object to this on. So it doesn't belong to the verb. It is not the direct object of the verb. So that's why we said it is intransitive verb. Something like laugh. I laugh. I laugh what? I laugh at him. If you say at him here, we still have the word at. Therefore, this object, him, belong to what? The word at. Let's look at the next example, linking verbs. Linking verbs are verbs that link the subject with the object. Let's have some example sentence. We said be. I am a teacher. Who is a teacher? I said I. So this is link the subject with the what? With the object. That means teacher. I am a teacher. Then I become a teacher or I become a nurse. So therefore, become link the subject with the word with the object. Then we have the word maybe something like seem. She seems happy. So we have the subject and the predicate. So the predicate is telling us more about the subject. Therefore, in this context, so this sim or affair, this sim is what is linking verb. Then let's look at the word helping verb. Under the helping verbs, that is the auxiliary verb, we use them to what? To tell us the time of action. So an auxiliary verb is a verb that helps the main verb to tell us the tense or the time of the action. So we have the word be, do, have, which is the primary auxiliaries. So under this, if you now take the word be, you can have am, is, are, was, were. So all these are under the be. I was eating. If you say I was eating, you are telling us about past continuous action. If you say, okay, you now take the word she is eating, it is now present continuous. You are now telling us the time. That means in the present. Then let's look at the next one. I have eaten, present perfect. I have eaten the food. So it is present and perfectly finished. Then we have the word did, do. Say, did you go there? So you are telling us, you are asking about past. So this did is auxiliary verb that tell us the time. That means in the past we ask the question. Then we have the word under the helping verbs we have can, which is the present. The past tense is could. So therefore you can now say I can run for only 2 kilometers now, but in the past I could run for 10 kilometers. I could in the past, but can now. So that means we are now telling us the time of the action. If you now take the word will, I will go to school. I will go to school. So will is the word auxiliary verb, go is the main verb. So let's look at another example. We have the what? The modal verbs that tell us the moods of the speaker. So based on what? The ability, permission, and necessity. Sometimes we can say, I can run. So this one is what? Is the word. You are telling your moods. So may I go in? That means you are now asking for the permission. You use the word may. So we have necessity. You must do it. So must is the auxiliary verb. So is the word the modal verb telling us the word the. Then the next example we have the regular verbs. Regular verbs are verbs that end with the ed, d, or t sound at the end. Let's look at some example. Cook, you can now say cooked, cooked, the past and the past participle form. Like, liked, liked, ed at the end for the past participle, past and the past participle. We have the word play, played, played. So we have ed at the end. So this is what we call regular verb, like regular verbs. That means the verbs that end with the ed, d, or t sound at the end. Then the irregular verb. The irregular verbs are verbs that form their past and the past participle without using the ed form. That the past and the past participle changes. Sometimes they come in the same way. If you say, for instance, cut, to cut something, the past tense is cut, the past participle is also cut. Therefore, this one is irregular verb. We have read, read, read. So the present form and the past participle differs because now the past and the past participle is read and then the present is read. So the spelling is the same, but the pronunciation differs. So therefore, it is irregular verb. We have the word speak, spoke, spoken. Speak is different from the spoke, and spoke is different from the spoken. So this is also irregular verb. So based on what the structure differs. So let's look at the phrasal verbs. So a phrasal verb is a kind of verb that comes in two pairs, sometimes in three in number. So you can see the main verb, the verb with either the preposition or an adverb. So the meaning of each phrasal verb is not the same thing as the individual words used in the context. Let's look at, for instance, the word cut down. Cut, we know to cut something. Down is now to put it down, something like this. But when you say cut down, is to reduce the amount of something you take, you eat. Say, cut down on sugar. You have to cut down on sugar because it will affect your health. So that means to reduce the amount of sugar you take. So look at the meaning differs. So if you now look at the another example, for instance, look down. It is not to look, you tilt your head down and look for something like this. It's not like this, but look down means to now despise something, despise someone. to look down on your brother, on your friend, something like this, because they don't have money or because of their condition, to look down on them. So look down means to despise someone. Then the next example, we have the word finite verbs. The finite verb, a finite verb is a verb that considers the subject in terms of the tense, the number, and the gender. If you say, I am happy, you can now say, I take the word am. But if you say they, you cannot say they am happy, but they are happy. So we can say the subject and the verb must correspond. If you use the plural subject, you must use the plural verb. That's why we said the gender and the number must correspond. So this is about the irregular, the finite verb. Then the next example is non-finite. Non-finite doesn't consider the subject or gender or the number of whatever we used. Sometimes, if I want to say, I want to go home. I want to go home. You can see, I said to go home. She wants to go home. I still use she, but I didn't change the verb, means to go. Musa wants to go home. You can say to go. I didn't change it. You cannot say to went or something like this. So this in non-finite verbs, we use the infinitive such as to have, to eat, to drink, to drive. But we also have the gerund, the ing form, where we use them differently. We have the word, maybe eating is what I consider good. So eating here we use it as a subject. So even though it's the verb, but we change the context, the usage. So the entire thing I want to explain here is now the infinitive verbs. What you have to know about the non-finite verb is I'm specifically talking about the infinitive verbs, where we use them as adjectives, sometimes as noun, sometimes as adverb, but they don't really act like verbs sometimes. So my name remains Baba Promodu, and that's the end of today's lesson. Assalamu alaikum.